looking, searching, trying to find the right way to walk. Stay beside me, guide me, to try me. I wanna walk in your light. I've been looking, searching, trying to find the right way to walk. The Lord is my light, my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. And whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even my enemy, but the things trust I put all in thee. Believe you got the world in your hand. You bless me, Lord, I know I can stand. Show me the way, Lord. I will be faithful. For I am desolate and afflicted, Lord, show me the way.
The people that are watching us on live on the internet, good afternoon. It is always to stand before you on another one of the Lord's high days. We're going to get right to the lesson, sisters and brothers, so because knowing that there's food out there, you're not going to concentrate anyway. But I'm going to do my best to hold you for a second. Now this, sisters and brothers, the first night of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, this is a holy convocation. This is a high day. This is the day that the people that said Jesus died Good Friday mistook for the weekly Sabbath days. This is so you're dealing with a mistaken flaw because people didn't understand that God have more than just the weekly Sabbath days. God have 7 annual Sabbath days. And I watched a guy, a California preacher one time, he got up and said it, and the first day he named was the Passover. That's not a Sabbath day, sisters and brothers. That's merely a memorial. Because if that was the case, then he would have had 8 annual Sabbath days, and the Lord don't deal in 8s. Man have 7. And when man get to 8, he won't be a man anymore. These things, sisters and brothers, are the way the Lord laid this thing out. But we're going to deal with this Feast of Unleavened Bread. And the name of it defines what it is. The Feast of Unleavened Bread. It don't say leavening agents. Unleavened bread. So you don't have to throw out your yeast. You don't have to throw out your baking powder, your baking soda, or whatever. Don't have to put your eggs in the backyard. Unleavened bread. When we started, brothers was throwing out everything. Then they start visiting your house. We're going to help you drink up that beer because this beer got hops in it. I tell you, it was a real crazy thing until one day I just got tired of it and said, look at what it says, unleavened bread. If it's not bread, you don't throw it out. But if it's bread, leaven come from the word levitate, mean to rise. Have nothing to do with what's in it. If it don't rise, it is unleavened. If it rise, it is leavened. I don't care if it's nothing but water in it. Levitate, to rise, okay? Why am I doing all of this? It's because I hear it all the time, all over the telephone. Okay? Because every year it breaks the phone down. Or should I throw my baking powder? No. Well, you know, a guy told me, well, I'm going to bring you an unleavened cake. How thick is it? Well, it's not so. I said, well, it's not unleavened cake. If you pour dough in the pan, and if the dough is 3 inches tall, and you bake it and it's still 3 inches tall, then it's unleavened. But if you pour dough in the pan, and it's 1 inch thick, and when you bake it, it's 1.5 inch thick, it is leavened. Y'all get the point? Okay. You probably, why should make this kind of fuss? is because I'm at the end and my whole office staff be tied up. They can't do nothing else. Answering the same question that we answer every year. People do not listen. So now we're going to get right to it. We're going to start this because this is a feast, sisters and brothers, that the Lord wanted us to keep throughout our generation and in all our dwelling. It didn't say throughout our generation and as long as we dwell in Israel. He said in all of our dwelling. So wherever you dwell, you're supposed to keep this. They said, well, this is for the Jews. Look, most people are don't pay any attention that when Israel came out of Egypt, it was a mixed multitude. And I'll show you something else too. When the Lord told Israel to put the blood over the doorpost, all the Egyptians know about it. So if it was only Israel's thing, then why did the Lord kill the Egyptian firstborn? He should have left them out, shouldn't he? Because this is an Israelite thing or a Jew thing. It's not a stranger thing. So why should the Lord punish the stranger? It's because it's the Lord's thing. Whatever he tells Israel, that is law for all of the rest of the sons of Adam. And we have to get away from this thing that thinking that the Lord gave laws and statutes for Israel or the Jews. He gave it for all of the sons of Adam. And the reason that the sons of Adam don't know it is because we shamefully abdicated our position as the priest and didn't teach the rest of them. And that was one of the reasons, too, that the Lord punished us. We were supposed to teach everybody on the planet the laws of the God of Israel because God of Israel is the God of the creation. So when people don't know it, don't laugh. Be ashamed, Israel. Be real shame because you didn't do your job. Now we're going to start this in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Leviticus 23rd chapter, because we are people that still want to blame everybody for our shortcoming. We want to blame everybody for the punishment that the Lord called on us before we got to the promised land the first time. Because he told us what to do to get blessed, and he told us what to do to get cursed. So apparently we like to curse, so we was real careful to make sure we do everything we could to get it. And we got it. Leviticus 23, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Leviticus 23 and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them,
Go ahead.
Concerning the feast of the Lord.
Now the Lord spoke unto Moses. And he told Moses, now people talking about the laws of Moses. Now the way I see this thing, look like the Lord is talking to Moses, not Moses instructing the Lord, is it? He said, speak unto the children of Israel, and said, these are the feasts of the Lord. Not the Jews, sisters and brothers, of the Lord. Go ahead and read.
Which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts.
And you are proclaimed, and you're supposed to have a holy gathering on this. Even these are the Lord's feasts. Skip down to verse 4 and go ahead.
These are the feasts of the Lord.
He said it again. These are the feasts of the Lord. Go ahead and read.
Even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. And the 14th day of the first month at evening is the Lord's Passover.
We had that Monday night. Go ahead and read.
And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days he must eat unleavened bread.
Now on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread to the Lord. So you must eat unleavened bread for 7 days. 7 days. If it was 8 days, then it would have said 8 days. Some people say, well, you know, it's 8 days. No, you eat the Passover with unleavened bread. But you don't have to eat nothing else with unleavened bread. Only the Passover. So when the sun go down and the 15th day start, then that's when you start eating unleavened bread, and it have to be out of your house. Sometimes we have a problem with numbers. We keep mistaking 7 for 8. And you can't do that. You know why? It's because the Lord have a reason for 7. He gave this man 7 days to be man. When the sunrise on the 8th day, we're not supposed to be mad anymore. That'd be the completion of the creation. It must be completed on the 7th day because he said he completed his work on the 7th day. This is important that you understand that. Go ahead and read.
And the first day you shall have an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. But you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days.
Now, it tell you what you're supposed to do on this day. Because 1,000 people call, what are we supposed to do? Can we cook? That's what the book say.
No servile.
It said no servile work. If there's anything more to it, then show it to me, and then we'll read it to everybody. Go ahead and read. What verse?
We're in the middle of 8. And the 7th day is in holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein.
So these are 2 days. On the 7th day, you're supposed to have a holy gathering like we have. And on the first day, you're supposed to have a holy congregation like we're having right now. Now, if we come together like this on any other day, then we violate. He said on the 7th day and the first day, sisters and brothers. We just want to keep this thing straight. Now, let's go into Exodus, the 12th chapter. Exodus, the 12th chapter. Because if we didn't pay no attention to the Lord, sisters and brothers, a lot of us wouldn't be here today because I'm pretty sure that somebody come out of the lineage of one of the firstborns that was down in Egypt among Israel. Somebody did. Exodus, the 12th chapter, we're going to start reading at verse 1. Exodus 12 and 1. Okay, read it.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months.
Go ahead.
It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, and saying, And the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house.
Now this is the beginning of the year to you, the beginning of the year. So he's telling you about the lamb, sisters and brothers, that you put this lamb up. Let's skip down to verse 5 and go ahead.
Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year.
Go ahead.
You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats.
Your lamb have to be perfect, can't have a flaw, and it have to be the firstborn. Go ahead and read.
And you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month.
And you can't kill it before this day. You have to keep it up till the 14th day. You can't go down to the supermarket and buy you a lamb. You can't go to the grocery store and buy you a lamb. You have to be put up on the 10th day, and on the 14th month, you must do what with it? Go ahead and read.
And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper door posts of the houses wherein they shall eat it.
Now, once you eat it, you got to get the blood and put it over your doorposts of your houses. Why is that? Skip down to verse 12. Verse 12, and go ahead.
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt,
go ahead,
both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord.
Go ahead.
And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are.
See, people talking about, we used to live in the Old Testament, so faith hadn't came yet. I'm going to tell you something. Faith merely mean believe. God was testing Israel's faith then. He could have just said, I'm going to come through there and kill the firstborn of Egypt, but I ain't going to kill the firstborn of the Israelites. But he had to do something to separate his servant from the other. So what separated them? Their faith. So if you believe God, you put the doorpost over, the blood over your doorpost. That was a token of your faith. So once you put it over your doorpost, then the Lord said, they believe me. So then I'm going to let them know that they should believe me because I'm not going to kill their firstborn. Go ahead and read. What verse?
We're in the middle of 13.
Go ahead.
And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt.
It was all according to your faith, sisters and brothers, all according to your faith. He didn't say when I see the Hebrew Israelites, when I see the blood, I'm going to pass over you. Go ahead and read.
And this day shall be unto you for a memorial. And you shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever.
Now, I read this on the Passover night, but why did I read this on the Passover night? We're going to show you. Let's go into 1 Corinthians, the fifth chapter. 1 Corinthians, the 5th chapter. There's always messages inside of message, sisters and brothers, but nobody pays attention. 1 Corinthians, the 5th chapter. First, we're going to look at the real Passover. Because the Lord letting you know that it's all on you. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, and we're going to start reading at verse 7. 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 7. Okay, go ahead.
Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump.
Go ahead.
As ye are unleavened. For even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us.
See now, Jesus is the real Passover. This lamb represented him. So he said, purge out the old leaven. And you can only purge sin by blood, sisters and brothers. So now, that's what he did. When he looked under the blood, that blood purged us. Now you can have unleavened. Because when you get some understanding, you know that you cannot have sin without it being purged by blood. Without the Passover, you couldn't have the Feast of Unleavened Bread because the unleavened represent righteousness and leavening represents sin. So when you get people trying to say that the Passover and the first unleavened bread are the same night, you know that they have no understanding. You cannot be sin-free until the blood is shed. That's why I said Christ our Passover. Go ahead and read.
Therefore, let us keep the feast.
Therefore, let us keep the feast.
Not with the old leaven.
Not with old sin, sisters and brothers. Go ahead and read.
Neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness.
That's all sin, malice and wickedness. Go ahead and read.
But with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth.
But with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. This is more about just eating flat bread, sisters and brothers. What it's about is that the Lord said, I have found a way to purge you of your sins. Now you have to maintain that purging by putting away your old sins and walking in newness of life, sisters and brothers. That's what it's all about. So you cannot have unleavened, the Feast of Unleavened Bread without the Passover. Now let's go back to Exodus the 12th chapter. See, this is when you can tell when people don't understand. You just listen to what they say. Well, you know, the Passover and first day of unleavened bread, that's the same day. How can it be? You can't be purged until you shed blood. It's all that simple. That's why Jesus just couldn't come and give a good conversation. He had to die. It's just that point. It's point blank. He had to die. Exodus 12, and we're going to start at verse 15. Exodus 12, and we're going to start reading at verse 15. Okay, go ahead.
7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses.
Go ahead.
For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day unto the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel.
Now you know what he's saying spiritually? 7 days, all the days you exist, you shall maintain my law. You shall keep my law. And the person that do not keep my law for the whole 7 days is going to get cut off. That's why I tell you in Ezekiel, the 18th chapter, the soul that sinned, it shall die. Now, if you know what sin is and you do it accidentally and you turn around and repent, that's what the blood is for. However, if you continue your sin, you're going to get cut off. This is more than just a physical thing we're doing. This is a spiritual lesson within it. Go ahead and read.
And in the first day there shall be an holy convocation.
First day you have a holy gathering. Go ahead.
And in the seventh day there shall be a holy convocation.
Go ahead.
To you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you.
Go ahead.
And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread. For in the selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall you observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever.
Forever is a long time, ain't it? A long, long time. You shall observe it forever. Forever. It didn't say as long as you're inside the borders of Israel, did it? You have to keep this, sisters and brothers. Skip down to verse 21. Verse 21 and go ahead.
Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, draw out and take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin and strike the lintel and the two side posts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning.
So now, he said, you do that. Now, once you put the blood over your doorpost, don't go outside now. Because if you go outside, you have walked from under the protection that God gave you. Spiritually speaking, don't walk away and go outside and start breaking the law because you just walked out from under your protection. Stay under the blood. That's what he's telling you. That's why the Lord tell you get wisdom and knowledge, but with all your getting, get understanding. Had they walked out to see what's going on, well, I won't know what's going on in the world just for the night. Bang! And you'd have woke up looking over your shoulders at the people being thrown in the lake of fire while you being judged. Spiritually, sisters and brothers, this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. Skip down to verse 29. Verse 29 and go ahead.
And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead.
I mean, every house had a firstborn. Every house had somebody dead when they woke up the next morning because they was not under the blood, sisters and brothers. I know the Egyptian heard it because doing some of the other things that Moses was bringing on the people, some of them like come over, the lightning bolts going to hit you and kill your cattle. Some of them got their cattle and put them in the house. The Egyptian did. I mean, all of them got the same message, sisters and brothers, but they didn't all believe. And if you don't believe, then your behavior show that, and your behavior is what gets you convicted. So everybody had a dead person in it. Skip down to verse 33. Verse 33, and read it.
And the Egyptians were urging upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste.
Go ahead.
For they said, we be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened.
Go ahead.
Their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders.
Now they took the dough before it was leavened. Why? Because they had to go. Go ahead and read.
And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses. And they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children.
Now, 600,000 people, sisters and brothers. Men besides you. That's a whole lot of people, ain't it? They travel. What verse are we?
We're at verse 38.
Go ahead and read.
And a mixed multitude went up also with them.
How many come out of there?
A mixed multitude.
That means you had a whole lot of people start to believe in the God of Israel, didn't you? Because they heard the message, and they saw the consequences of not adhering to the message. They said, hey, wherever you go, we going. Whoever your God is, that's my God. This is what happened when you put the message out there. A mixed multitude. Israel always had strangers among them. Always. And it shall be always. What's the next verse? 39?
We're in middle
Go
of
ahead.
38. And flocks and herds and even very much cattle.
Now pay attention to this 39 here. Go ahead.
And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt. For it was not leavened.
For it was not leavened.
Because they were thrust out of Egypt.
Because it didn't have no yeast in it.
No, they were thrust out of Egypt.
Because it didn't have no baking soda in it.
Thrust out of Egypt.
They didn't put the white eggs in it. It's obvious. If had to be some rising agent in there, or it would have risen had they had time. Read that verse again, because I want people to pay attention to it. Go ahead and read.
And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt. For it was not leavened.
Go ahead.
Because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry.
And they couldn't wait. That's why it wasn't leavened. It's not, it might have had yeast or whatever, but they didn't have time for it to rise. So apparently, whatever they used in it made it rise, and when they cooked it, it was whatever it was. And cooking didn't make it rise, whatever they was using. But it's telling you right here, the only reason it was unleavened because they didn't have time to wait on it. Not because it didn't have a leavening agent in it. Because leaven comes from the word levitate, mean to rise. For educated people, we can be pretty dumb sometimes. So the reason it was because they was thrust out of the land. And they was thrust out of the land on the 15th day. Because remember, the 14th day, they couldn't come out the house. Ain't that what it said?
That's right.
We finished that?
Yeah.
Finish that verse.
Neither had they prepared for themselves any victual.
Now let's go into Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. Because we take our time and learn what we're supposed to do, sisters and brothers. The Lord didn't do all this writing for nothing. He wrote it because he wants us to learn this. 16, and we're going to start at verse 1. 16 and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night.
Go ahead, and I brought them by night. Why? Because they traveled all day to get to the Red Sea. And it was night when he brought them across the Red Sea. That's why the Lord said it was dark on the Egyptian side, and it was light on Israel's side, while he was splitting the sea. Go ahead and read.
Thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover unto the Lord thy God, of the flock and the herd, and the place which the Lord shall choose to place his name there. Thou shalt eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith.
Go ahead.
Even the bread of affliction. For thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt in haste.
Go ahead.
That thou mayest remember the day when thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt all the days of thy life.
He said, I want you to do this so you will remember all the days of your life. How that God delivered you. Go ahead and read.
And there shall be no leavened bread seen with thee and all thy coasts 7 days.
Now, so the people that keep calling me, can I put it in my car? No. Can I put it in my paper? No. Can I put it in my garage? No. Well, I'll let my auntie have it. So now what you're going to do is just like I ain't going to eat pork, so I'm going to take my pork chocks over there, and I'm going to let my auntie break the law. You are guiltier than they are because you know better. Put it in the garbage can. You will survive. It's all that simple, sisters and brothers. The Lord gets you for sinning, and then he gets you for committing lasciviousness. You know what lascivious means? Causing somebody else to sin. You better check this God out. He don't leave nothing to chance. Did you finish that 4th verse?
No.
Go ahead.
Neither shall there anything of the flesh which thou sacrificest the first day at evening remain all night until the morning.
Now that was talking about the Passover. Ain't no Passover supposed to be remaining. Everything that you didn't eat, you're supposed to burn it. Because that's represent when Jesus come up out that grave and leave, come up out that grave, none of him is left in there.
That's right.
That's what I tell people all the time. Well, what about the dead then? What part of them, go to heaven? As I tell you what, go back and read and see how much of Jesus was left in the grave when he rose. You don't tell me I'm looking at this body that ain't her no more. That was her before she stopped breathing. Jesus is the captain of our salvation. We look at him, and however way it happened with him, that's the way it's going to happen with you. When Jesus died, you saw him. And when Jesus rose, all of him was gone. His soul or his spirit, whatever you want to call it, didn't go to heaven. It's not looking down on you smiling. You're looking at all of it. It's all that simple. But skip down to verse 8 and read it.
6 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread.
Go ahead.
And on the 7th day shall be a solemn assembly to the Lord thy God. Thou shalt do no work therein.
Look, we already been told that you eat the unleavened bread for 7 days. So only telling you on the 6th day you have a solemn assembly, but you still eat the unleavened bread. Solemn assembly is another word, ain't nothing but a holy convocation, because all of the Lord's high days are solemn, and you have to assemble on them. It is all that simple, sisters and brothers. It don't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Now let's go back to Exodus 13th chapter. Exodus chapter 13. Because too many times, Israel look at this and go through the rituals. This is the procedures here. We got to do this here. This ain't nothing but a physical thing. God do physical things to show you spiritual things. Because eventually, you are going to be a spirit being. Where are you going to be located in the kingdom? You deciding that right now. Exodus 13, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Exodus 13 and 1. Okay, go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Sanctify unto me all the firstborn, whatsoever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and of beast, it is mine.
Why is it that he's doing that? Because the Lord is a fair God. Since everybody but Israel lost their firstborn, then he said, hey, your firstborn belong to me too. But because your faith was delivered, but I want to let you know that yours belong to me too. Had they listened, then I wouldn't have had to tell you to sanctify the firstborn, because all of the firstborn would have been delivered. God is giving you messages, but ain't nobody listening. Go ahead and read.
And Moses said unto the people, Remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten.
He said, remember that. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. Go ahead.
This day came you out in the month of Abib.
That's our first month. Abib, not January. Go ahead and read.
And it shall be when the Lord shall bring thee unto the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, that thou shalt keep this service in this month.
Go ahead.
7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and in the 7th day shall be a feast to the Lord.
And in the 7th day going to be a feast of the Lord. It's a holy convocation, but it's also a feast of the Lord, sisters and brothers. Go ahead and read.
Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee, neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters.
How much of your quarters does all cover?
All of it.
That means you can't put it in the garage, sisters and brothers. You got to throw it away. It's all that simple. Skip down to verse 10 and read it.
Thou shalt therefore keep this ordinance in his season from year to year.
You have to keep it in the time that the Lord appointed. You can't put it no other time. Because unleavened bread must come after the Passover. It's must. You can't put it after the Day of Atonement. It's got to come after the Passover. Because when the blood was shed, that purged your sin. And you're supposed to be sin-free from that day forward. I know that's an impossible feat to make. However, sin-free on purpose. In other words, if you sin by accident, that's what you got the blood for. It's all that sin. If you sin out of ignorance, that's what you got the blood for. There's room for repentance. Skip down to verse 17. Verse 17 and go ahead.
And it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines,
Go ahead.
although that was near. For God said, lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt.
Now, these people didn't have that kind of faith, and the Lord knew who these people were. I'd have destroyed Egypt for them. Now, I could take them the short way from Egypt directly along the coast, the Mediterranean coast, right on into the land. They can walk in there. But I know they got to run into the Philistines. And when the Philistines come out against them, they're going to go back to Egypt. Because the Lord said in Psalm, Ephraim had a spear in his hand, and he turned away in the face of battle. So now you got to go a long way around, got to go through a sea and everything else, because the Lord knows you didn't have the heart for battle. Israel got big mouth. But when it's time to get in the trenches, you can find something better to do. So he said, I ain't going to take them there, because I know they're going to run into the Philistines, and the Philistines come out against them. They are going to go back to Egypt. What verse?
We have verse 18.
Go ahead.
But God led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt.
Now, he led them by way of the Red Sea. Skip down to verse 21. Verse 21, and go ahead.
And the Lord went before them by day, and a pillar of a cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light.
Go ahead.
To go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, for the pillar of fire by night from before the people.
Now, so the Lord was there. He led them, and they knew he was in the cloud. They probably would have turned and went back anyway, but they knew he was there, sister and brother. In the daytime, it was a cloud up there, and at night, it was a pillar of fire. They could always look and say, okay, the Lord is still here, because he led them and never turned away from them. Now, let's go into Exodus, the 14th chapter, because the Lord wasn't quite through with Pharaoh yet and the Egyptians, because the Egyptians must have did some very ugly stuff to Israel. And the Lord always get even, sister and brother. That's why I say that to the nations now that are doing his people in. You're going to pay. I ain't got to pay. I ain't got to hate you. In fact, when I find out what the Lord, when I read and understood what the Lord's going to do to you, I weep for you. And I'm glad it didn't give it to us, because we don't have the guts to do the damage that the Lord's going to do. Exodus 14:1. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel that they turn and encamp before Pihahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal-zephon, before it shall ye encamp by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land, the wilderness hath shut them in.
How did the Lord know Pharaoh was going to say that? Because he's going to put it in his mind. He ain't through with the Egyptians yet. Go ahead and read.
And I will harden Pharaoh's heart.
See, that's what I will harden Pharaoh's heart. He gonna, he said he destroyed Egypt by sending evil angels among them. He sent one of them evil angels, and they're going to whisper in Pharaoh's ear, man, you're going to let them get away with that. They're going to rob your people. They're going to take jewels and gold, and they're going to go out of here. They're thinking they say, you can't do that. You're right. You don't know that evil angel is whispering in his ear because God sent him there. That's why you'll never hear me say, well, Satan, the devil made me do it. In other words, you done got God mad at you. Go ahead and read.
And I will harden Pharaoh's heart that he shall follow after them. And I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord, and they did so.
Go ahead.
And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled. The heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people. And they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us?
Ain't that something? It was told that the Israel was fled. Hey, he the one said, get out of here. So who had to tell him something he already knew? That's that evil spirit. Look here, man. Do you know what you done did? Pharaoh and all these people got up in there. Why did we do this? They done forgot. Why did we let them go? First thing, because he turned your water to blood. He brought frogs up in your house. He brought flies on you. He killed your crop with your cows with thunderbolts and lightning. He had lights all over you, everybody itching. That's why, but you'd be surprised. Satan persuaded them evil angels are great when it comes to persuading people. And I know it was them because the Lord said he destroyed them by sending what among them?
Evil angels.
Evil angels.
Right.
Go ahead and read. What verse?
We're in verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
And he made ready his chariot and took his people with him.
And he made ready his chariots and took his people with him. So he's going to do some big killing now. Skip down to verse 10. Verse 10 and read it.
And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. And they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord.
Ain't that something? They was afraid. Why were you afraid? Don't you know what God has out in this land? Oh, y'all ain't got enough yet, huh? Come on with it. But they was afraid. Where's your faith? Skip down to verse 19. Verse 19 and go ahead.
And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them.
They wasn't going to never lay a finger on them. So the Lord sent an angel behind them, and then he come on behind them in the pillar of the cloud. He was there, looking at everything that was going on. Skip down to verse 13. Verse 13 and go ahead.
No.
Did I just read that? Or verse 19 then. Go ahead. Verse 19.
I just read 19. We going through the 28.
You mean I'm ahead of myself?
Yeah. I just keep reading.
Did you read verse 10? And did you read
10.
verse 13?
No.
Well, read verse 13 like I told you. And I want my elders to shut up. They're confusing him. Read verse 13 like I said. Go ahead.
And Moses said unto the people.
And Moses said unto the people.
Fear ye not.
Fear ye not.
Stand still.
And
see the salvation of the Lord.
Why is it that Moses had to say that to these people? So that's why people come, brothers, I'm telling Brother Boo, these people are hard-headed. I don't know how you take it. I take it good because I remember whose children we are. That's how I make it. Brother and sister come talking crazy. It's all right. Yep, you are your father's daughter or you are your father's son. Why did he have to tell these people to stand still and see the salvation of the Lord? That's all that the Lord did for them. Go ahead and read.
Which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you shall see them again no more forever.
He said, now look at them. You ain't going to see these no more. Because God's going to do something. Skip down to verse 19. Verse 19 and go ahead.
And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud and darkness to them. But it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night.
So the Lord had it dark on the Egyptian side because they left at night, but he had it light on the Israel side. And they didn't come all night because it took all night for the Lord to split that sea with his wing. Why it took all night, you can ask God when you sin. Don't ask me, because somebody going to surely ask me. I don't know. Skip down, verse 21. Go ahead and read.
And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night. And made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided.
So it took all night, and then when he got through with it, it was dry land. The water stood up on the east side. Go ahead and read.
And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground. And the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left.
Now, you have people running around calling this not the Red Sea, they call it the Sea of Reeds. Next time somebody tell you that, then you came here and say, well, what is this water standing up on each side for? What is that, some wet weeds? You'd be surprised, sister and brother. There's some crazy teaching out here. Everybody's trying to kill the word of God. You will hear it. Go ahead and read.
And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen.
Go ahead.
And it came to pass that in the morning watch, the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians.
So the Lord up there in the cloud, and he's looking through the clouds at them. Peeping out there, and then he's troubled. He did something real practical. What did he do? Go ahead and read.
And took off their chariot wheels.
They didn't just evaporate, poof, poof, poof. He took off their chariot wheel. If you driving a chariot trying to catch up with people, you take the wheels off, you through dealing, ain't you? He took off their chariot wheels, something simple. Go ahead and read.
And they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel.
Wait a minute. Finally, somebody's light came on. Let us flee from the face of Israel. Why is that? Go ahead and read.
For the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians.
Finally, it dawned on them. That's why I know that this was from the Lord. Finally, it dawned on them, the Lord is fighting for the Israelites. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thy hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength when the morning appeared. And the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea.
So when somebody bring that sea of reeds, say, boy, them some wet reeds, because them weeds were real wet, because they drowned people. Go ahead and read.
And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them.
I mean, water killed everything, don't it? Skip down to verse 30 and read it.
Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore.
So you ain't never seen nobody floating on top of weeds, sisters and brothers. So it's not was a sea of reed, it was the Red Sea. It's all that simple. If you haven't heard it, you will. And I want you to have this scripture in your back pocket or in your purse and raise up and slap the lie out of their mouth. That's what you have to do. Don't be so politically correct all the time. Deal with it. Now let's go into Numbers, the 33rd chapter. Numbers chapter 33. Because, sisters and brothers, this is something that we need to read when the brothers try to make the argument. That the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Passover are the same day. This is what you read. This is what you have in your purse in your pocket for them. Numbers 33 and 1. Go ahead.
These are the journeys of the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt with their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron.
Go ahead.
And Moses wrote their goings out according to their journeys by the commandment of the Lord, and these are their journeys according to their goings out. And they departed from Ramesses in the first month.
They departed from Ramesses in the first month.
On the 15th day of the first month.
On the 15th day of the first month.
On the morrow after the Passover.
On the morrow after the Passover. Tomorrow after the Passover. Go ahead and read.
The children of Israel went out with an high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians.
So that lets you know that the Passover and the first day of Feast of Unleavened Bread are not the same. Tomorrow after the Passover. That's when Israel come out of Egypt. Because they couldn't come out of their house on the Passover. Didn't we read that?
That's right.
So now let's go and show you, sisters and brothers, that this feast must be kept throughout your generation and two other major feasts. Let's go into Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter. Deuteronomy chapter 16. And we're going to start reading at verse 16. Deuteronomy 16 and verse 16. Deuteronomy 16 and verse 16. And this is Lord letting Israel know. I mean all Israel. And then once the Lord set up in Egypt, it's going to be all men. They got to come up and take care of these feasts, do these feasts. Go ahead and read.
3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose. And the feast of unleavened bread.
That's the one we keeping now. Go ahead and read.
And in the feast of weeks.
That's 2. That's called Pentecost. Go ahead and read.
And in the feast of tabernacles.
That's the feast of ingathering. That's the 7-month feast, sisters and brothers. He said, all the males got to show up. I could have had should have read higher to show you got to bring the priests, you got to bring the sons, and you got to bring the daughters. You got to bring the family too. And it didn't have no separation of you can't come because you're on your monthly or because you just had a baby. You got to bring them. All of them, sisters and brothers. All of them. Go ahead and read. In fact, let me back up and read this here. Start at verse 11. Go ahead.
And thou shalt rejoice before the Lord thy God, thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant, thy maidservant, and the Levite that is within thy gates, and the stranger and the fatherless, and the widow that are among you, in the place which the Lord thy God hath chosen to place his name there.
Now, who all do you bring with you? Everybody. Everybody. You can't, it's when it's all males, of course all males, but you bring everybody that's connected to you. Or everybody that you know that's dealing with what you're supposed to deal with. Even the stranger, you got to bring them too. Because he is the God of all people. Now, let's get back and start back at verse 16 and 1. I just want to let you know, so you read it with your own eyes. I didn't see no addendum in there. And said, however, if she's on her monthly, however, if she had a baby, you got to leave her. You can't read that in the book. So if you can't read it, then you have to go to the commandments that is presented to you. Bring everybody. Because I get tired of all these novices running around thinking they know more than the 45 plus years of preaching that I've done. You don't know more than me. Best you can do is catch up with me. But if you ain't been around 45, you still got some years to go. Go ahead and read.
We go to 16.
3
times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose.
Go ahead.
In the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles.
Go ahead.
And they shall not appear before the Lord empty.
And you shall not appear before the Lord empty. Go ahead and read.
Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God, which he hath given thee.
And you're supposed to give as you're able. You got some people that come to the feast all the time, but they ain't never put no money in the plate. We got some people that are feast people. They don't come to class, but they come to the feast. So when you come, feast people, contribute something so you can square yourself with the Lord. I'm just putting it on the table like it is. Square yourself. He said, you should not come empty. And I mean, no matter where you are, if you knew who you was, you're supposed to keep this. Let's go into Acts, the 8th chapter. Let's look at a person here. This was a time when Israel was dealing with Israel only. But let's go into Acts, the 8th chapter. I ain't cracking no jokes. I said feast people, I mean feast people. I'm on fire Hoover. I'm gonna exile him to the video room. Because when you get him out there, he acts strange. Acts the 8th chapter. And we're going to start reading at verse 26. Acts 8 and 26. Because this is when the apostles, this is the time of the apostles, and they teaching people. At verse 26, go ahead.
And the angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, Arise and go toward the south unto the way that goeth down from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is desert. And he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, an eunuch of great authority under Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who had the charge of all her treasure, and had come to Jerusalem for to worship.
Now he's going to Jerusalem to worship. What is Ethiopian doing going down to Jerusalem? Go ahead and read.
Was returning and sitting in his chariot, read Isaiah the prophet. Then the Spirit said unto Philip, Go near and join thyself to this chariot. And Philip ran thither to him and heard him read the prophet Isaiah and said, Understand thou what thou readest?
Now, when he asked this Ethiopian, do you understand what you read? Look at the answer. I want everybody to listen to this. I had to tell somebody that on the telephone yesterday. Well, why can't I just learn this myself? And I quoted this. Go ahead and read.
And he said, how can I, except some man should guide me?
And that you better pay attention to, because that is the protocol of God.
That's right.
That's why you have prophets. That's why you have evangelists. That's why you have teachers.
That's right.
That's why you have preachers. That's why you have bishops. These are teachers.
Yes, sir.
And if you don't get taught by these people, you can read till your mouth, your teeth fall out and your eyes roll up. Because somebody have to guide you. People don't understand when the Lord told Moses when he got to complaining, I didn't have all of these people. This is too great for me. He said, well, I tell you what, I'm going to choose 70 men and bring them up. And I'm going to take of the spirit that is on you, Moses, and put it on them. What's he telling us? That the spirit that Moses got is sufficient for everybody, so he got to teach it to everybody else. Because he was the one that guided them. He was the one that taught them. But don't nobody pay attention to what's being written. He ain't going to send no new spirit here. He said one gospel, one spirit, one baptism. Who going to teach you that? The one that the Lord has taught, which taught somebody else, which taught somebody else. And when it got down to your generation, which taught you. Even though it's written in a book. Y'all understand what I'm telling you? Finish that verse.
And he desired Philip that he would come up and sit with him.
So he wanted Philip to come up and sit with him, and Philip started preaching Jesus there. But we're going to show you something now. Philip wasn't supposed to teach this guy. Let's go into Acts the 11th chapter. Acts the 11th chapter. Acts chapter 11. Sometime I like to take you way to Mississippi and back before I spring the truth on you. 11, and we're going to start reading at verse 19. Acts 11th chapter and verse 19. Because after they had killed Stephen, after they killed Stephen, then all Israel scattered all over the place teaching. But let's show you who they was teaching. Verse 19. Go ahead and read.
Now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that arose about Stephen traveled as far as Phoenix and Cyprus and Antioch, preaching the word to none but unto the Jews only.
See, they were the Israelites would teach nobody but Israel. I mean, nobody. Peter it all up. Go ahead and read.
And some of them were men of Cyprus and Cyrene, which, when they were come to Antioch, spake unto the Grecians, preaching the Lord Jesus.
So brother read that and see, brother, they taught the Greeks too. No, they were the Greek Jews. I am a Hebrew Israelite. But I am an American citizen. So they said they was preaching to Jews only. Why? Let's go into Matthew, because then looked like Philip violated, didn't it? But let's go into Matthew the 10th chapter. Let's see why these guys were so mean. We ain't talking to nobody but Jews. This is the part that's never read in the churches. Matthew's 10, and we're going to read verse 1 first. Matthew's 10 and verse 1. Read it.
And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease.
Now, we don't do that physically a whole lot, but believe me, we're still doing it. Because we cast out a whole lot of devils. How do you do that? By driving that foolishness out of your head that he planted there and replacing it with the word of God. And healing you spiritually because you sick running around don't know what thus said the Lord. We're still doing it, sister and brother, but you have to have a spiritual understanding to see that. People say, well, I would rather that you laid a hand on me and heal my body. I wish I could do it too. But however, I'm going to give you a better healing. I'm going to give you a healing, which is a spiritual healing, that's going to let you live forever, even after you have died. Think about it. But he always equipped his servant. But then he gave these guys a directive. Skip down to verse 5. Verse 5 and go ahead.
These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way.
Didn't ask them.
No, commanded them.
Didn't suggest. He commanded them, saying, go ahead and read.
Go not in the way of the Gentiles.
Go not in the way of the Gentiles.
And into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not.
And don't go into the Samaritans, because the Samaritans were strangers. When the Syrian king took out 9 tribes, they brought people from everywhere and put them there. They didn't know that they was Israelites, but the Jews didn't even talk to them because they knew. He said, neither into a city of the Samaritan, go not, go ahead and read.
But go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
But he told him, I want you to go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So Philip was violating? No. The Ethiopian had been to Jerusalem to worship because he kept the law. Every male that come before me 3 times a year. So that Ethiopian went to Jerusalem to keep the law. That's why, Philip wasn't violating, because he was an Israelite. But later on, the Lord broke that thing with Peter, sisters and brothers, because he had to put Peter in a dream and bring a sheet down with all kind of 4-footed beasts and everything. He said, rise, Peter, slay and eat. Peter said, I've never eaten anything common unclean in my life. He let it down 3 times. And then while Peter was trying to figure out what the Lord wanted him to do, you got these Italians showed up that Cornelius sent. Then the angel told him to go with him, God doubting nothing. And so Peter went down there, and Cornelius met him, fell on his knees and get up. I'm a man just like you. The Hebrews nowadays won't do that with him. And then he went into a room and saw a whole lot of Gentiles in there. He said, don't you know that it is an unlawful thing for one that is a Jew to come into any other nation? But God has showed me not to call any man common or unclean. You know, they try to use that to kill the dietary law. But that's when the Lord opened up the door for the first Gentile, actually the first stranger, period, to come into the church under the new covenant. It's all that simple. Paul hadn't been dispatched yet. Why Peter, brother Boyd, not Paul? Because Peter was the one that the Lord left the keys of the kingdom with. He said, what you are bound on earth, bound in heaven. What you loose on earth and loose in heaven. So the Lord knows his protocol. This man that's confused. So now, after this thing have happened, now does Israel keep doing this after the death and resurrection of Jesus? Did we stop doing that? But the people try to use Paul writing to say you don't have to keep the feast no more. So being that he's the one that's accused, we're going to read one thing that he did. Let's go into Acts the 18th chapter, and I got one more place after this. We're going to read about drinking some of this wine. You better not drink no whiskey and get drunk. I can't prohibit you from drinking whiskey, but you get drunk and you go to jail. They call me, I don't know you. I want to make that clear. And I am not going to bail you out. I ain't going to use my money because I need it. And I ain't going to use the Lord's money because it ain't my right to use his money to bail you out. Like, I went into it yesterday at a place because I was going to wire some money to a person that was in need. Had a guy in there buying a big fifth or something. Hey, brother, can you contribute $1 to my thing here? I said, I wouldn't contribute 2 cents to you to buy liquor with. I was insulted. You done bought the liquor. Now you want me to give you $1 first installment on another jug. So I wouldn't give you 2 pennies. So if you get drunk, you're in trouble. But to let you know, sisters and brothers, that this thing is to be kept to all generations. We're going to go to the one that they try to use to kill it, to Apostle Paul. We're going to go to Acts 18, and we're going to read one verse. Verse 18. 18 and 18. Okay, read it.
And Paul, after this, tarried there yet a good while, and then took his leave of the brethren, and sailed thence into Syria, and with him Priscilla and Aquila, having shorn his head in Centuria, for he had a vow.
Go ahead, keep reading.
And he came to Ephesus and left them there, but he himself entered into the synagogue and reasoned with the Jews.
I'll let you know that when he was doing, that's when he held service on the Sabbath day too, didn't he? Go ahead and read.
When they desired him to tarry longer time with them, he consented not, but bade them farewell, saying, I must by all means keep this feast that cometh in Jerusalem. But I will return again unto you, if God will. And he sailed from Ephesus.
Now, why is it that Paul said he must by all means keep that feast that cometh in Jerusalem? Why? Because of the law. The same reason that the Ethiopian was there. Because he said 3 times a year shall all the males come before me. So now, if Paul had said that you don't have to keep these feasts no more, he said, okay, I'll stay here. I ain't got nowhere to go. I may as well stay here. He said, no, I must by all means keep this, because that was the law, sisters and brothers. Nothing has changed. Your gathering here is not a request. It is the law. So now we understand what that unleavened means. That's sin free. That's why we keep this. So now that we have this, sisters and brothers, we're going to read one more place, because the reason we installed this Deuteronomy, the 14th chapter, in the early days was not a part of this, but somebody brought a holiness paper, one time. And when we was over with, we said grace over the table and broke out the wine. Whoa, these sinners up in here. They drank it. Y'all a bunch of sinners. Because they had been taught that smoking and drinking is sin. So what I like to do is, I like to read this. And so if I am a sinner, the one that you call yourself serving every Sunday made me one. Verse 22, go ahead.
Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed, that the field bringeth forth year by year. And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God.
I have to say this, sister and brother. Don't you know we got brothers out there teaching that the only way you should pay tithes is come up with some corn, or either come up with some barley, or you contribute a meat, you contribute a wine. In fact, I told a sister that, I said, well, look here, when the last time you had a beef farm? I'm telling you, you got people teaching this. I can't go down, when we got ready for bricks, I couldn't go down at a Home Depot and say, will you take this 2 cows and a lamb for the bricks? And when the electric bill comes for medicine, I can't say I'll throw you 2 chickens and a turkey. They want money. Okay? So he said, and what was it?
We're at verse 23.
Go ahead.
And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God, and the place which he shall choose to place his name there. The tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thine oil, and the firstlings of thy herds and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always.
He said, you want to come to the place where the name of the Lord has put his name there. Well, brother boy, we in Riverdale. We don't know what we ain't in Jerusalem. The Lord said, where there's 2 or more gathered together in his name, where is he? He's among them. His name is here. Yes, sir. This is the Israel of God. Go ahead and read.
And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee,
go ahead,
which the Lord thy God shall choose to set his name there, when the Lord thy God hath blessed thee,
go ahead,
then shalt thou turn it into money, and bind up the money into thine hand, and shall go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose.
No, you can't do that. You can't sell it and bring with the money. You got to bring your cow 200 miles. You got to herd your sheep 250 miles. According to this modern day teacher with a bunch of these blind Hebrews, he said, turn it into money, right? Mm-hmm. And you take that money and go to the place where God have choose. Go ahead and read.
And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after.
You shall use that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after. That's within reason now. Go ahead and read.
For oxen.
For oxen.
Or for sheep.
For sheep.
Or for wine.
Or for wine.
Or for strong drink.
Or for strong drink. To me, that's Jack Daniel. Okay? And I want to tell this crying preacher, what's his name?
Jimmy Swaggart.
Huh?
Jimmy Swaggart.
Who is it?
Swaggart.
Swaggart. I want to say to you, Mr. Swaggart, your nephew is listening. It was him that told you that I teach better than you. So don't be getting up no more talking about you ain't going to drink no Jack Daniel. I heard you, mister. You'll be surprised at who's listening to the Israeli God. Not his nephew, Smagger's grandson, got up and told him that I teach better than him. Now he's angry now. He's going to impale me for drinking Jack Daniel. Yeah, I drink Jack Daniel. Not as much as I used to, because my head don't take it like it used to. My wife said, you don't drink it at all. She don't know what I do in the middle of the night. But anyway, sisters and brothers, I want you, once we turn out, I want you to eat well and celebrate the high day that the Lord your God commanded you to do.